that you asked, which is sort of, how do you give feedback as a mentor? And I'm going to be literal. I mean, not what you say as a mentor, but how you say it.
Right.
Because what you say is going to depend on what your mentee needs, right? Do they need, resume practice or interview practice? Do they need to have somebody hold a mirror up to them? It's how you give feedback. And in my mind, I think there are at least 3 elements. One is, don't give that feedback unless not only have you listened, but your mentee knows you've listened. It's not quite the same thing. Just listening and making sure that your mentee knows you've listened. Why? Because your advice will have more credibility and impact on your mentee if you've listened, and especially if they know you listened. They're going to believe you more than if you just pop right in with that advice. This is for the Steve Blum of 10, 20, or 40 years ago, this was a bigger problem than it is now. It used to, because you can tell I'm a high energy person, and that can get in the way sometimes. Boom, I want to jump right in to show how enthusiastic I am, but sometimes I have to shut up and listen for a minute, like that. So the second element of giving feedback is it's 2 things combined. It's being direct and being gentle. And you can do both. I mean, it's, they're not contradictory. But it's very important. By the way, the word but is probably the enemy of these kinds of things. I try so hard to avoid using the word but. And is a way better word. Being direct, if you're not, think about the alternative. There's this risk if you're not direct that either the dialogue gets complicated because perhaps your mentee isn't good at hearing indirect. I happen not to be good at hearing indirect. One of the reasons Pianpian and I can be friends for the last decade is she is direct. Sort of says something, I get it. Kind of going circuitously doesn't work as well with me. It's just important to do that. So one is the sort of complexity of not being direct, and the other is you could lose your credibility. Somebody could interpret indirectness as not exactly dishonesty, but just not being completely there. And then the gently, I guess, goes without saying. Once you get to know your mentee pretty well, there are mentees who can take tough love. But, I would say the safer way of going at it is doing it in an encouraging way. And then the third element, so one is listening, the other is sort of directness and gentleness combined. The third thing, this is something that we all forget. And I did write down a note on this. So I'm just going to read you my note. At times and on days when you and your mentee can both be mentally fully present. What if you didn't get a good night's sleep? What if, on Tuesdays, it's Kevin's day with the kids? There are things, I'm teasing you now, but you get the idea. Is it really helps if the feedback can be given at a time when both people can kind of be mentally present. And that can have to do with getting enough rest. It can be location, it can be day of the week, it can be month of the year, it can be seasonality. So thinking about that sounds like logistics, but it's pretty darn important logistics. It's sort of, you're not always going to be able to do that, but it would be nice if the setting was good.